Yeah, and I think, you know, these players, they dissect the break maybe none better than SVB, but I think maybe, you know, humidity at times can affect the break shot. SVB, of course, has so many different types of breaks he can take into a match. A little light with the lag there, though. So we won't see him break the balls first, but inevitably we will see him break.
And now we'll get to see Nguyen van Viet. What an experience for him, being out there in front of the TV cameras, up against one of the game's all-time greats. And that's not an exaggeration, it's a matter of fact.
Well, speaking of breaks, I mean, not the outcome he wanted, being snookered on the red 3, but didn't look too fluky there, pocketing the 1 on the side, a direct path to the middle, pocketing the 2 as well. Going to be a push out most likely to start, but you know, for Nguyen, that's got to be a good sign. A lot of times we see players that are very capable, even though we don't know the name as well after the break, but sometimes the break really slows them down. Hard to pull off upsets, but that was a great break off there to start.
Carl Boys made the point yesterday on more than one occasion that you can tell about a player's ability level within a few racks, and it was quite obvious that Le Van Swan, who overcame Eklund Kachi yesterday, it was quite obvious that he was a very accomplished player. One has to say also, though, greatly contributing to that result was a very poor performance by Kachi.
Yeah, hasn't really played a whole lot the last several months since that, you know, runner-up finish and that heel loss to Feder Gorst there in Jeddah at the World 9-Ball Championships. So he didn't really apply any heat, but his opponent yesterday, I'll tell you, he was sweet stroke, moved the ball nicely, great decisions, and capped it off with an incredible kick shot onto the 5-9 to end it. I think he pushed out to maybe partially snookered here. Yep, elevation on the cue. Maybe just a sliver of the 5 to go over. Now Shane, who's been in the country for probably some 10, 12 days, something like that. I think anyways, has spent some time.
Yes, he played in the Perry Open, the World 9-Ball Tour ranking event that preceded this. It was not too far from here, on the coast actually, in Da Nang. SVB was out surprisingly early. Tied 17th in that event.
Yeah, I mean, I think him and Feder Gorst are the only Americans to make it into that final 64. I think the players, of course, you can't look past the Perry. Really a great event, a lot of prize money. Pure class. Wasn't at the one this year, but the one last year was really a nice tournament. But most of the players probably looked at it a little bit as a warm-up for this event here, and maybe not quite as acclimated, you know, with the jet lag and whatnot last week. Should be okay here this week in Hanoi, though.
Well, took a bit of a swipe at that one.
Yeah, I'm sure the nerves are flowing, and talked about it yesterday. You got to like, though, when a player recognizes as an underdog, like 99% of the field against SVB. But some of the unknowns, they're going to stay aggressive. It makes it, I think, a more fun kind of match for those players, and you never know. Start to knocking in a few balls and let the 9-ball guys take over. Oh, he's missed. Yeah, that was right into the outer point. Maybe trying to hold the line on the cue ball a little bit better to make the 5 a bit easier. could see he was trying to come 2 cushions for the 5 in the lower right. It does not pass the green 6. Ended up short, though, but a pretty nice strike on the cue ball right there. A lot better than his last.
Well, last night when we went off air, all of the electricity in the arena and pretty much all of the spectators gathered round table 16 to see Nguyen Duc Thang up against Fedor Gorst. And I can tell you what, Gorst had to pull out all of the stops to win 9-8.
Yeah, I watched that Hill game, and his opponent made some really miracle shots just to have a chance in that Hill game. Good effort there. Maybe a little bit of a two-way, trying to play to the top part of the pocket.
Just one note on that Gorst match. I was out there watching the last 4 or 5 racks. Gorst went onto the hill at 8-7 by winning the 15th rack with 3 consecutive fouls. And the last hook he placed Nguyen in was pretty much impossible. It was a brilliant shot from Gorst. Nguyen looked at the possibility of an escape over and over, thought about all different kinds of stuff, and he just couldn't find a solution. I don't think anyone could have found a solution. It was one of those that, had he escaped, it would have been one of the all-time great shots.
I'll tell you, that kind of talks about what I brought up a moment ago on the Hill game. He made some incredible escapes with a lot of control as well. It took a kiss shot on the 9 for Federer to get by, and I'll tell you what, Federer had a pretty questionable opening match, really. 9-6 was his final, and his opponent in that second match actually missed a pretty easy ball to go up. I believe it was 8-7 himself. Maybe it was 8-6 even, and then the match turned.
Yeah, that was on the main table as well, wasn't it? Gorst winning 9-6, as you say, against Nguyen Huang Phong. I think the general level of Vietnamese pool, we've already seen it only a day in. The general level has improved from last year, markedly.
No, absolutely. And of course, they have some superstars that they look after, but talk about it's just really kind of comes down to numbers. All kinds of great numbers that add up to what will be a bright future for Vietnamese 9-ball pool. I mean, the numbers of the players, numbers, the population, the interest, the number of pool rooms. Every one of them has 50, 60 tables, it seems like. All right, definitely playing back onto the 7, you would think. Watch out for the cue ball coming underneath the 6. Oh, it kind of opened up a bit.
Messy old rack to begin with.
You could see Viet trying to simmer the breathing down a bit. We'll see how Shane's cueing this ball. I think he's going for the cut. I'm not sure. Oh, look at that, playing a hook shot on the 7.
That's why commentating on Van Boening is such a pleasure. He's the ultimate shot maker, isn't he?
Yeah, knowledge is supreme as well. For many years, of course, the break shot did have some separation. And at times, even myself kind of felt like that was the biggest deal between him and other players. But the more I know Shane and the more time goes on, you realize it was much more than just the break shot that got him all those titles.
The little combo there was no cinch. He was waiting for the cue ball to stop. And the wait for the end of the first rack is already over as well. SVB 1-0 up. Some interesting matches to kick us off today. Oscar Dominguez very much involved in that chase for Mosconi Cup inclusion. He's 1-0 down to Nguyen Tuan An. Georgiev of Bulgaria. He's 1-0 up against Chang Yi Wei. Marvin Assis, good player from the Philippines, 1-0 up on Nguyen Van Thang. Kostas Kukiadakis, 1-0 up on the Wong Kwok Vu. And an early deficit on table 3 for Victor Zielinski. 1-0 down to Deo Phuc An. Always a good sign when the one ball finds the middle pocket for Shane Van Boening.
Yeah, one good thing that Shane always does, that no matter his opponent, he gets very involved with himself. He knows he's a huge favorite here, and as we all do, and you know, he doesn't take a match off, doesn't take a shot off, really thinks of the entire week, even here in an opening match, as a huge favorite.
And we saw this in the opening match yesterday when Jason Shaw kicked off his title defence in very similar fashion. No liberties were taken. It was all business.
Yeah, I saw the same from Jason yesterday, playing a lot of safeties when he could have been on the fence, maybe showed us one, a special shot or two, and oh, nice kick shot there. Really well done. Now Jason had some struggles in his second match, did get by. 9-7, I believe, was the final score. He has a day off today. He'll be back tomorrow. Shows a bit of that stroke here. One rail down. He stunned at 2 rails. May not get the reward for as good a shot as it was, but shows you very capable.
Look at the 8 ball. I think that might be a little irritating for SVB.
Yeah, I'm not sure it covered him up or not. I think it is open. I'm like you though, Phil. I thought it was going to come into play. Yeah, that right arm looking pretty fluid, even though only game number 2. Like Phil said earlier, of course, SVB, oh wow, missed his mark by some piece here. But nobody on the practice table any earlier in SVB.
Nicely done. So official practice began at 9 o'clock. He was here on the stroke of 9, putting in some work. And although the old phrase goes, practice makes perfect, we know that's not the case. It never will be. But practice, especially when you're as dedicated as Shane Van Boening, practice does greatly help. There's nothing like being prepared We were talking about Catchy earlier, saying he hasn't played a lot of competitive pool in the last few months, and frankly it showed yesterday, whereas SVB, he's always on it. This year has been wonderful for him. He's had 11 tournament wins in all forms of pool, and he's been doing pretty well of late in one pocket.
Yeah, I think, you know, he may say otherwise like he used to, but I think the game has grown on him a bit, and I'll tell you, he's gotten to where he's, like, I would think probably top 3 one-pocket players in the world, really. Could even be higher than that.
So I'm going to name the other two, and I might be way off on this. I'm going to say Fedor Gorst and maybe Tony Chohan.
Well, I think most would give the top spot to Alex Pagulayan still. You know, he's just still in that regard, I think, until someone challenges him and takes him down. But, yeah, I think there's a crew there. I think you could say SVB, Federer. Of course, Tony Chohan, when Tony's on, he's as good as it gets. But I think AP is still the best overall.
And what a great character as well.
Yeah, now looking for our first break and run. Difficult one. You can see the 6-8. Not that easy. The 5's a little covered up. So if he gets in the prime position, he can kind of open those balls off the 5. Would love a little more angle here on the pink, but he's going to knock this in with some speed. Trying to get that angle to either go into the 8. It'd be preferred to draw into the green 6. Just kind of leave the 8 alone. So you may see him elevate the cue. Like a soft draw, if you can. A little unlucky to catch it thin, and then the right spin on the cue ball carried it up. We'll go for this cross-side bank, I believe.
So after that, at the end of this rack, Jeremy, my question to you is, name the top 3 banks pool players in the world.
I got to think for a second.
Well, we'll wait to the end of the rack. I'll give you that.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, he's kind of showing you what I always say. I still think he's maybe the cream of the crop, SVB, when the ball's laid difficult. You know, we don't always have that. Seems like it's more and more these days on the World 9-Ball Tour with the break rules and the tighter pockets, of course, but there may be some more efficient players with an open table, but that's very rare as well. But when they lay difficult, I like the guy on your screen.
Yeah, so as Jeremy was saying, the first break and run out some lovely shots there, and SVB unchallenged so far, going into a 3-0 lead. Okay, Jeremy, the top 3 banks pool players on the planet.
Well, I'll tell you, you may have to give a dead heat at the moment to Billy Thorpe and probably Fedor Gorst. I mean, hard to say. Federer's not one to speak of the top guys. I think SVB's up there. Of course, there's so many great bankers. Some players that haven't played much of late. Justin Hall, another great banker. Skylar Woodward when the heat's on, another one. So I'd say maybe Thorpe, Gorst, and SVB, though, overall.
Well, again, the 1 finds the side, and this time the 2 is in the open. Not exactly available, though.
Yeah, and you talked about so much time he put in practicing like he always does on the break shot. And it's not so much the one he wants to go in the match with, but maybe what the table and how the rack's reacting. That way you have a few different options. he's going to try and play the 2 just past the 6, kind of roll it over, and just kind of bleed the cue ball by the purple. Simple safety.
And the fact he's treating his opponent with so much respect, I think he's actually a very nice touch and will make Nguyen van Viet feel better as well. Because he doesn't feel intimidated by someone who's just playing loose pool because they are convinced they're going to win.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, SVB's learned that, 9-ball, anything may happen. But, I mean, it's just like, when you're at the pool room, a lot of us, we do different events, special events, and you'll have a fan or an amateur player, and you're playing games with fans, and they always tell you, hey, don't take it easy on me. Give me all you got. Well, SVB is exactly that type. Oh, I didn't know it was that difficult of a hit. I know he wanted to tie the pink up a little bit more, but anytime you're surrendering ball in hand to one of these great players and all the balls are playable, you're a big, big underdog. So just draw the cue ball up the side rail. Doesn't have to get straight, just anything past the side is okay. Or near the side, rather. A hair thinner than ideal, but he'll check the cue ball with a touch of left English. Maybe he'll come 2 rails underneath the 5, kind of opening up the cue ball. Yeah, I like that. One thing you can learn, you talked about perfection earlier, which is pretty hard to attain, but one thing you can learn from SVB is it's not about perfect pool, it's about what makes sense. Just like right there when he shot the 5, he didn't try to get straight on the 6. No reason to add that side on the 5 just to improve what's a pretty easy position anyways. Kind of makes you more playing the game rather than a lot of worry.
What a good view there of the spin imparted.
Yeah, looks to be getting stronger as this match goes. Pretty scary for his opponent.
Indeed, 4-0 it is. Now, in the course of our conversation a little earlier, we were mentioning the US Moss County Cup captain, Skylar Woodward. Well, he's 3-0 up on Nguyen Dut An. To Lian Han, the veteran from Singapore, who joined Aloysius Yap in taking Singapore to a World Cup final. He's in early trouble against Yang A Bao, 3-1 down. Mustafa Alner, who's claimed some notable scalps this year, including Joshua Filler and Fedor Gorsht. He's 4 up on Nguyen and 2. These are all first round matches going on at the moment. Robert Hart from the USA, brother of the film star and comedian Kevin Hart. Not a lot to laugh about at the moment. He's 2-1 down to Nguyen Quang Hiep. But Ko Pin Yi going about his merry way. 4-0 up on Nguyen Su Lin.
Yeah, a couple kisses on the cue ball. Of course, that's unfortunate, but he's not probably real happy with the way he hit it anyway. little thick. You could see the cue ball coming near that side. He missed the one. Little shake of the head as he went back to his chair. But good to see what his opponent can do here with ball in hand, though. Looks like he's got to play a kiss shot on the 6 to open. Now here, just make sure the one doesn't crawl up that rail too much.
Well, it's 11 weeks until Christmas Day, Jeremy, and when he played the deliberate foul shot in the previous rack, that was his Christmas gift to Shane Van Boening. One given, can't afford any more.
No, he's gotten a little funny here on this 3. It's not too hard to make, but I'm wondering about the position on the paint. Maybe he's got to play a little on the lighter side. Okay, he's going to get out on top of this. Did travel just enough to come forward, kind of wrapping the lower left corner. 2 cushions towards the purple. Yeah, that's a little heavy. But if he can get out, these are the type, right? I mean, he had to make a nice little kiss shot with ball in hand. Good shot from the 3 to the 4. Recovered a little bit. Now another recovery and a difficult shot on the 5. But kind of these outs, if you can do it, can get you going. We saw him break the balls very well after winning the lag in game number 1. Little bit of a decision. Nerves are going a bit. You could pull this up the rail, but I kind of like him coming across, trying to get the cue ball where it's at now. Quick backswing there, Phil, and then let up on the downswing. We see it quite often.
And you could see it coming from the previous shot, even though he potted it. He hit the ball far too hard, and that was symptomatic of someone who's got tension in the arm. And of course, no mercy from SVB.
Yeah, I'll tell you, if he can remember that stroke there on the 8, very cleanly struck and got a ton of movement on the cue ball. So SVB adds to that lead at 5-0.
And of course, being the consummate professional, he will remember what happened to him here last year. He got to the last 32. He was 7-2 up on Albin Auschen, and Auschen came back to win 10-8. Now, I'm not suggesting that his opponent here today, Nguyen van Viet, is in Auschen's class. Of course he isn't. But when you've suffered a defeat like that from well in front, you don't easily forget.
Yeah, it was really a kind of crazy scratch he had on the winner's side last year against a young Filipino player that sent him to the one-loss side, and then he drew Albin Ocean in that final 64.
Yeah, and of course it was a scratch that ultimately did for him in the match against Ocean, because he might well have made it hill-hill, but he scratched on the 7 in what was the closing rack.
Yeah, I don't know if SVB, he may be toying around with a few different speeds here. Took a little off. You know, that's one thing. He's not going to take anything off as far as shot selection or some type of crazy decision, but with a 5-0 lead and, you know, a pretty comfortable situation, why not experiment with a few different speeds on the break, you know, moving forward in this Hanoi Open?
Yeah, because if he has an extended run here, he will be playing several matches, you would assume, on the main match table, and we want to see that, of course, because we want to see the best.
Yeah. Wow, he's not pushing out here. Interesting. Going for the cross-side bank. Kind of knew he was tracking the cue ball back down table. Kind of figured it would be something difficult for his opponent. And, of course, a chance to knock that in as well. I tell you, speaking of young Filipino players, and they produce so many great ones, but there's one coming up later on the other stream table, AJ Manis, and I think he is absolutely going to be a world champion one day, and I don't think it's going to be too long. I mean, you know, the Philippines produce so many great players, but I think he is going to be one of those upper echelon greats. It's just as pure as I've seen.
Well, if you're endorsing him, Jeremy, there's no way I'm going to disagree.
Yeah, and, you know, we saw Rhoda, who's played so incredible. I love his game, keeps it simple. I certainly think he's set to be another Filipino to talk about for the next however many decades, but there's many of them. But when I watch Manis, as far as the fundamentals, and again, just what he has at such a young age, I just don't believe he'll be denied.
Another illustration of Van Boening's banking abilities. Didn't try and do too much with the cue ball.
I'll tell you, you know, if you want to get better at any pool game, if you practice banks, it teaches you a ton how the balls react. And we all kind of have a clue where the cue ball's going. You can take, you know, a spectator, and they might, when you're shooting a ball straight in, but you know, to get that gut feeling of the cue ball path off of foreign hits on the object ball. And I'll tell you another thing, you know, you can pocket balls straight in or you know, just regular shots and kind of get away with a bad stroke. That does not happen on bank shots. Watch out, cue ball. This one's gone.
Well, he had a great chance to get off the mark in the previous rack, did Nguyen van Viet. Because of the misuse of side there, he's got another wonderful opportunity here. Well, the green 6 did not go in cleanly, but it's in. And look who's in the background there. The great Efren Reyes.
Yeah, take a picture there, because that's the argument. Who's the greatest ever between those two players, SVB in the chair and Efren Reyes watching.
On the right, Emily Fraser, who is so influential in the great success of this World 9-Ball Tour and the continuing development of it. She works so hard, never stops.
Yeah, I really don't know how she does it. Of Of course, he truly loves the game, though, and the players around it. All right, Nguyen's on the board.
Win by name and win by nature, at least in rack 6. I can't imagine an overall win, though, because Shane Van Boening remains 5-1 ahead, and he looks very comfortable to me. So what about some other scores? Well, the winner of this match will take on Dang Tae Kien or Ali Percival in the next round. It's 2-2 at the moment there. On table 2 over on the Matchroom Multisport YouTube channel, Do Tae Kien 3-2 up on Do Hwang Kwan. And on table 7, a player with arguably the best name in the tournament, Jericho Bonus. He's 2-1 up on Besar Spahiu, Eklan Kachi's fellow Albanian. Jericho Bonus. There's another guy here actually called Jericho.
Yeah, from Turkey, is it, I believe? Jericho, maybe? Saw that yesterday. All right, really good break in the opener. Not quite the same here, rack. What is it, number 7? So SVB, after losing the cue ball, not much damage, just one game and back at the table.
One of the score for you involving a superstar, Kopin Yi, 5-1 up on Nguyen Su-lin.
I don't know if he gained position there or not. I was about to say that I think the end rail has gotten a hair jumpy. That scratch in the last, it's one thing to have the speed off a bit. You know, if you notice that scratch he had, it didn't like barely go in the corner. I mean, the speed was off by, you know, quite some pace. So, you know, I had a few players tell me that occasionally had the rails bounce a little bit. Certainly the table's overall playing great, but when humidity sets in, sometimes you can get an occasional boing.
And the most important word in the whole sentence there, occasional. If it's all the time, you can deal with it, but when it's inconsistent, that's the problem.
Yeah, and actually what happens is if you get it in your mind a bit and you start to let up on the swing because you're worried about the bounce on the rail, it actually bounces more. It's weird how that works, but certainly the case. Solid hit. It's going to need a little fortune.
Tell you what though, Jeremy, humidity plays a massive part in conditions in any cue sports. We've just had back-to-back world ranking events in snooker in the UK, English Open followed by the British Open. And it was very, very rainy during those 2 weeks. In fact, a deluge at times. And conditions were nowhere near as good as they normally are, purely and simply because of that.
Yeah, and it was quite the opposite. Lucky enough to go to Riyadh there at the end of August, early September, and the conditions were just perfect for the players, and I think we saw that. All right, touchy little jump. Played it with a lot of control.
Yeah, you're right about the humidity levels. If they're very low, it doesn't matter the temperature, whether it's extremely hot or very cold, the tables play nicely. We had that in northern China, the International Championship. Played one year in late November. It was freezing cold in the city where the tournament was held. This is snooker, of course. And the conditions, I think, were some of the best I've ever seen. Even though it was freezing cold, it was a dry cold.
Yeah, and you know, whether it's heat inside or AC, like Phil said, if the humidity's low, you can really keep control of the conditions much better. He's going to fluke this. He's going to have a little look at the red 3. No real pocket, so safety coming.
it is quite humid in here, not the most powerful AC we've ever known. Jeremy and I are sweating away like a couple of old-timers in a Vegas sportsbook waiting for the 7th leg of a parlay to come up.
Yeah. Been there before. Okay. I wouldn't say it was the planned outcome, but decent. I think he made things kind of odd here for SVB. Maybe he'll play real good touch. He's trying to use the 9. I ain't gonna lie, I can see the rail having a little bit of bounce, a little more than yesterday. Of course, the tables are broke in a bit more after day 1, and that will lean towards the humidity kind of setting in them rails a bit more. Cloth getting a bit more used. A great shot there. Maybe more of what these players are used to from Viet.
He was a little concerned about the scratch, but it was always going to that right-hand jaw.
Just a little mindful of his speed. Shouldn't be any problem. He's got to really miss the 7 to one side of the pocket or the other not to have the 6. But now looking to win 2 in a row. Really didn't have that many opportunities to get on the board. One other one that he kind of failed on, but now capitalizing.
Yeah, he snatched badly, didn't he, at an 8-ball, but hard to believe he's going to miss this one.
Well, he's gotten a little flat, so this is where you really got to make your decision on how you're going to play it. Easy to just say, oh, let me kind of stun draw, and looks like he's going to go forward, trying to just kind of smoothly come 2 rails. Now he's overamped it a bit. He's going to have a little bit of a tester on the 9. Nothing major, but certainly missable.
Absolutely. I can see this one being wobbled. Very nicely done. Didn't catch any part of the jaws, straight into the heart of the pocket, and it's 2 on the trot for Nguyen van Viet. Shane Van Boening's 5-0 lead has been reduced to 5-2. Georgi Georgiev, it's slow going on table 26, but he's 3-0 up on Chang Yiwei. Abdullah Montasser from Bangladesh, 3-2 up on James Nguyen. John Francisco, he leads Rinaldi Wirawan from Indonesia, 3-1. You might remember the name John Francisco. He was the player who knocked out one of our celebrity entries in the US Open, Andy Goldstein. Goldstein won the first 3 racks, but Francisco got the last laugh. There you can see over on table 2, it's a real battle between Do Tae Kien and Do Hong Kwan, 3 racks each. And early issues for Oscar Dominguez. He's 4-2 down to win Tuan An. Another player encountering early issues, Victor Zielinski, 4-1 down to Dao Furkan.
Yeah, we're so used to Victor, of course, having great results. Of late, it hasn't been his best in some of the bigger events, but just how the 9-ball spins sometimes doesn't take much, really. I mean, if you look at Federer Gorst's year, right? I mean, one of the years that we'll never forget, and certainly he won't either, but, you know, he won the Whirlpool Masters, Hill, won the Whirlpool Championships, Hill. Of course, taking down the U.S. Open, a somewhat close match, and remember the jump shot on the 4. Little things that could turn the tides, and it just doesn't take much in 9-ball pool, but that's what makes it so great.
Yeah, I described it in Billiards Digest as the perfect trifecta. Again, though, not the perfect positional shot.
No, and I think that top rail's gotten in Shane's head a bit. I think he was real worried about the speed after losing the speed, not only on that one ball that was pretty simple in the last rack, which he got snookered, but I believe it was the 5-ball he scratched on the previous. Does have the safety here.
Another important scoreline on table 11. Skylar Woodward, 6-1 up on Nguyen Duc An. Of course, in, well, 7 weeks' time, he's hoping to be Captain Fantastic, Skylar, and I think the USA have got a very good chance. I think a lot depends on the man we've just seen, Shane Van Boening.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, just talking to Shane throughout the year, I think it's going to be a really good Moscone for him and Team USA. Talked about it a little bit yesterday. Federer Gorst, who didn't have his best day one last year, I think played a lot better than he got recognition for. After that, I think he'll be much better. I think Skylar will be more like himself we're used to in the Moscone, and then, of course, there'll be a couple more to add on. Wow, that 2-ball cut backwards quite a bit. I don't know if we'll get another look at that, but referees have been pretty on point.
Well, from my viewpoint, are you saying that he hit the 3 first? I think definitely.
Yeah, I mean, if you notice, certain things are, you know, you can hit a ball thin, but certain things are kind of impossible. I don't know if we'll get another look, but Shane didn't seem to question, but it was very, very close. People always talk about a split hit. Well, a split hit's about 1,000,000 to 1. And the odds of hitting one sphere into 2 other spheres at the same time, pretty hard stuff. But I always felt like a split hit, it was a foul anyways, just because the rule states you must hit the object ball first. Yeah, but getting back to that Team USA, I mean, you know, of course, I was very involved the last several years and loved it, even though we didn't get the W, but we had a few chances. But, you know, maybe before, here's another look. I think maybe, you know, we didn't get a look at that kick shot, but, you know, I think it's more about which player you leave out this year because there's, you know, I think 3 real strong ones in form for those last 2 spots.
Absolutely. Dominguez, Steyer, Thorpe. Of course, here, someone else could come into the equation with a heroic run. But they're the 3. It's, at the moment, you would think, 3 for 2.
Yeah, and at the moment, you know, Tyler Steyer's in there on the rankings. Skylar has a chance to, you know, surpass him, along with Oscar, of course. I think Oscar's in there, and maybe even Billy with a big run after that nice win he had at the Wolf's Den just a couple weeks ago. Battle here in game number 8 after Nguyen winning 2 in a row.
Yeah, Thorpe winning at the Battle of the Bull. So why is it called that, Jeremy?
Yeah, well, I couldn't say 100%, but I'm pretty sure because the main sponsor, Bull, the Bull Carbon shafts. And, of course, the Wolfers just doing great things over there in Roanoke, always with pool, with the juniors, and the junior tour around America. But that event there had a lot of added money. It was a little unfortunate, the timing of the Perry and whatnot. Didn't get quite the international field at the Battle Bull that they wanted, but they'll be back on the calendar next year. Probably even more prize money at stake.
Another inventive shot from SVB. Another ball he knocked in out of the locker.
Yeah, he's got to roll this one. One of the best ever at this type of shot. I don't know if he was trying to go into the 9 there. Thought it was going to be a much lighter speed. Now he's trying to size up. Do I jump at this? Or do I play the kick shot? I like the kick myself. This is much more of a match all of a sudden than we had just moments ago.
Yeah, all that talk about the Battle of the Bull. This is now a battle for Van Boening. First result of the day, achieved on table 16 by Mustafa Alner, defeating Nguyen and 9-2. And Skylar Woodward on the hill against Nguyen Duc An at 8-1.
Yeah, funny little safety here. Yeah, he's going to get it. Not the way he expected. Shane may play a very similar shot, trying to kick to the bottom cushion, coming across the 5. Sending the cue ball up table as the 5 crosses over below the 9. He got in too deep.
Not happy. He was in total control, and now that's not the case anymore. Oh, but he was well wide of the mark. Surely not a fluke. Surely not.
Looks to me he can get at this. He's going to have to make a nice shot on the 6 down the rail. 8's over the side, so really probably just keeps it real simple here. What I've always thought the prettiest shot in pool, playing the ball down the rail past the side.
To say it was a crisis would be wholesale exaggeration. But when Van Boening gets this rack on the board, I think he will be quite grateful. Not the cleanest 9 ball, but it goes in nevertheless. And SVB back 4 in front at 6-2. On table 22, Marvin Assis 4-2 up on Nguyen Van Tang. Kostas Koukiadakis of Greece looking good against the Wong Kwok Vu 7-1. Victor Zielinski still in trouble against Dao Thuc An 5-2 down the pole. Liu Qian Hung of Chinese Taipei 7-1 up on Nguyen Hai Dang. Tom Staveley has come all the way from the UK to play. He's 3-2 down to Nguyen Quang Tien. Robert Hart 5-3 adrift of Nguyen Quang Hiep. Koh Pin Yi on the hill though, no such concerns for him. On the hill at 8-1 against Nguyen Su Lin.
I think that's 2 in a row. He's missed the one in the side. Could be 2 out of the last 3 actually, but very good starter for Nguyen. The 2's near that 1, 3 up the table. So we'll get a real good look here with a nice starter trying to clear.
This match could have been a lot closer. A missed 8 ball in one rack. Wasted opportunity in the last.
Pretty nice recovery there, and it's gotten a bit thin and stretched. It will be the bridge as a helper. Not sure, but I believe the 5 passes the 9 in the lower left, so he's going to have to come down and get on the pink. Boy, I'd hate to have to ease this ball. I might track the cue ball down the table a bit more. He's got some pockets available for the pink, the right middle, the upper right. Looks like he planned on trying to hold. On the lighter side for the pink in the lower right.
Somewhat of a delayed reaction, the 3 ball going in, but we heard the sound rather than saw the drop.
Yeah, and he played it a little on the thick side. Still almost overran this pink, but he's pretty ideal now. And no worries on the 5. He didn't really address it, so it does play. So you wouldn't say worry setting in. I don't think that's really SVB too often. You know, if he's making mistakes, that's a different story maybe, but definitely Nguyen has gotten his attention now, looking to win 3 out of the last 4. And I don't know about you, Phil, but don't you see him? He's kind of smoothing the stroke out a little bit more.
Yeah, that was a little jumpier. The shoulder went into that one, but the 7 went in regardless. And I think we've reached a psychological tipping point in this match.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Moving the cue ball much easier. Kind of seems like he's forgotten about his opponent a bit more, which always helps.
You know, that's exactly what I was going to say. He's not now playing the great pool god Shane Van Boening, who at the start, it seemed to me, Nguyen thought was invincible. Never missed a ball, never made a mistake. Now he's seen SVB make some mistakes. And I think he realises that, okay, he might not win, but he can certainly compete.
Yeah, I agree. And you don't have to have all the shots. It's really what the match really gives you at that time. And now a nice clearance there. And like I said, won 3 out of 4. So SVB will be watching this break shot closely.
Plenty of experience playing out there on table 4 right now. One of the best players from the UK for many a year, Imran Majid. He's 6-4 up on Jose Alicio Tizer of the Philippines. Besar Sparhu has hit the front against Jericho Bonus at 4-3. Kopin Yi through 9-1 against Nguyen Su Lin.
Yeah, not the best hit on the rack there, and pretty fortunate that the one hung. Not saying it'll be a huge problem for SVBs, but he's got to play a nice shot from the 1 to the 2 to carry the angle to get back on the 3. So much more work if that one had failed. And this one is very deep, so sometimes hard to judge coming out of the pocket. That's why you see him not playing off the side, more of the straight draw stroke. This maybe overhit a bit, huh? No, he's actually pretty perfect. Still a difficult rack. 5 a little covered up. He's got to get from the pink 4 to the 5 back to the 6. The 2 and 3 and 4 shouldn't be a problem, but then the work really starts.
How often do we see this, though, where an underdog gets some traction and then it's all abruptly halted by a scratch on the break? Not just an underdog, it happens in matches between two of the very finest. Momentum is stopped in its tracks.
Yeah, and I talked about that many matches to where, you know, there's capable players that, again, may not have all the shots, but very capable of running out if given the opportunity. Uh-oh. Mishit the ball to the pocket a little bit. And a very much an unforced error here. But a lot of times just the break rule, not spend enough time on it, you kind of almost sometimes think it's easier than what it really is. Oh, this here, he's got to really move the cue ball as well. Wow, what a shot. I understand it was only a sliver, but to be able to jump and go forward and then all the way back down, that's something special.
Well, he wouldn't have wanted to make the mistake in the first place, but boy, what a recovery. Can't tell you Skylar Woodward has won 9-2 against Nguyen Duc An. Nguyen Van Viet isn't being swamped, but there's no getting away from the fact Shane Van Boening is moving ever closer to the winning line. 2 more racks needed, and that's because SVB enjoys a 7-3 advantage. Looking at the World 9-Ball Tour live scores, WNTLivescores.com, Mickey Kraus, big-time winner on the World 9-Ball Tour this year, his first match on table 11, which is going to start shortly, is against Nguyen Van Viet. I wonder if that's any relation to Shane Van Boening's opposition right now. You were mentioning before, Jeremy, AJ Manus, Albert Manus. He's playing shortly on table 2 against Venus Lim from Singapore.
Oh, probably a pretty good player, and if it's the man I'm thinking of, a young upstart from Singapore, along with his opponent, very young from the Philippines. And yeah, it's been a cast of a lot of different types of breaks and outcomes so far for SVB, especially here his last 3 or 4 breaks. difficult layout, even with ball in hand. The blue 2's a little jumbled on the pink 4. Ball in hand usually helps in these situations, but it's a little messy.
Just thinking about Venus Lim from Singapore, there was another very famous indoor sports player from Singapore called Paul Lim, who was one of the very first darts players to have a 9-dart finish in 5:01. Not the easiest combo this, the 2-4. Plenty of distance between the two balls concerned.
Yeah, and quite a bit of cut on the 2, and wants to somewhat ease it, just to hold position. Yeah, he said heck with easing it. He went the other direction, a little more power, and shrunk the pocket on the 4. Didn't hit it that bad, really. Just when you add the speed, it's got to be a bit more pure. Well, Shane wants to go for this bank, I know it, but doesn't want to lose some 3 out of 4 games here, though, and let this match get even closer.
We've got no shot clock graphics for you, but there is a shot clock on the main table. It's 30 seconds with 1 30-second extension per player per rack, and you might occasionally hear the numbers 10 and 5 being called out by an official.
Yeah, and you call that a little bit of a fluke, but look where the cue ball's at. You think he wasn't playing the double bank. He's not going to play position on the 3 where he set the cue ball. That was totally intentional, the double bank onto the pink.
Such a brilliant effort, even getting the cue ball past the 7. Everything about it was absolutely top-notch.
Yeah, and again, what's so amazing about these pool players, the greats, and you just can't practice all these shots. It's got to be a lot of feel, imagination, and then confidence to pull them off. He's shown us a few of those here in this match. Remember when he kissed the, I believe it was the 5, went to the rail and kind of warped the cue ball back on the 7. It was another carom shot earlier, and now a double bank onto a combo. SVB is not afraid. And you never know. Maybe noticing, you know, the great Efren Reyes over his shoulder, right? And let me show you a few there, E.
Yeah, I think you're going to be busy showing him anything.
Yeah, you could see a little let up on the downswing there, nothing major, but I think the rails have gotten in his head a little bit.
It's not been entirely smooth sailing, but Shane Van Boening now on the hill with a 5-rack advantage. Not such favourable news for Oscar Dominguez. 6-3 down to Nguyen Tuan An. Kostas Koukiadakis has won 9-2 against Huang Kwok Vu. Victor Zielinski pulling one back against Dao Fukan. It's 5-3 now to Dao. About to start over on table 16. Bernie Regulario, another player from the Philippines to be reckoned with. He's taking on Nguyen Van Dung. And on table 15, another exciting Filipino, Jeffrey Ignacio. He's about to start against Tran Trung An. To Lian Han, the veteran from Singapore, 7-6 down now to Giang A Bao. And Liu Chien Hung from Chinese Taipei on the hill against Nguyen Hai Dang at 8-2. Skylar Woodward, as I said before, a 9-2 winner over Nguyen Duc An.
Not sure if he has the potting angle on the 3, but ooh, cue ball up in the trees over the 9. Gonna need the referee to do a little work with the template. And hats off to these referees. I've heard really no complaints. Of course, the players, they understand how difficult it is, but it's still easy when you're kind of fighting for your livelihood to having a complaint or two, but it's been really good stuff so far.
Yes, and of course when we get down to the business end of the tournament, when fewer tables are in operation, we've got two of the very best in the business here in Marcel Eckhart and Ben Taylor-Fuente.
Not the toughest shot elevated with the 3 near the cushion. Gives you a few different ways to make it. He got in behind it. Little fortunate the cue ball over on the rail as the 3 came away from the pocket. One of the worst situations you can have here for Nguyen, besides being down 8-3.
Extension call.
Well, the extension was called. It was one of those funny shots, wasn't it, that you don't encounter too often.
Yeah, I think he, distance was his best friend there, trying to get the cue ball near the cushion, making cueing difficult. Nice strike there. And you can just hear it, those players that hit the cue ball so well, and SVB is certainly one of those guys.
Yeah, this hasn't been top gear stuff from SVB, but the good has far outweighed the bad. And there's been nothing ugly.
Yeah, and when you look at it, it's really been about the cue ball with a few mistakes for SVB. It hadn't really been a whole lot of missed balls. So he's going to take that pretty well coming off this first match, knowing he's got to play another one later. Caught that a little heavy. Could have used a little more out of the cue ball, but so he's going to hit down on this a bit, staying away from the side that much.
Well, it looks as though SVB is going to prevail. He'll have to wait a while to discover the identity of his next opposition, because Dang Tan Kien and Ali Percival are locked together at 4-4. This one, though, is over. Shane Van Boening trebling up on Nguyen Van Viet. The final score in favour of the 5-time US Open champion, 9-3. A pretty good initial run out for the great American. So next up here on the main table, it will be an all Vietnamese affair. Not though in the commentary box, because it's going to be Michael McMullen and Carl Boys calling the shots. It is Duong Qua Quang against Chang Min Zwong. That's coming up in around 5 minutes' time.